Are you a high achieving woman that has hit your midlife and you're wondering like, oh my gosh, I want to keep achieving, but I'm not really sure what I'm doing, where I'm going, or what have you? Then this episode is definitely going to be for you. I'm going to be interviewing one of our authors in this book, The Book I Read. And you can get your copy of The Book I Read at actiontakerspublishing.com/TBIR. So if you know somebody who is a midlife woman, who's a high achiever, definitely share this out with her. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to our YouTube channel and go ahead and subscribe to us over there, or head over to our LinkedIn page or Facebook page and like us, whatever you do over on those pages, just do it. Okay. We look forward to sharing with you this interview of Josette Diaz coming up in just a second. Okay, I definitely fit this mold of midlife. I'm going to say even at 60, I'm still in midlife, okay? Because I'm going to live to be 116. So I'm in my midlife stage there, Josette. I'm in my midlife.
I love it. I love that you've got that projection.
Well, I'll just share quickly on that before we go on with the interview. Is when I was 13 years old, it was 1976. And for those in the U.S., you may know that was the U.S.'s bicentennial birthday. And so I remember it so well. Like I had all this, 4th of July garb. My mom sewed everything. She was a seamstress. So she sewed my pants, she sewed my shirt. And this was the 70s. So this was the hippie. We were still like coming out of the hippie era. And I remember I was 13 and I was like, I'm going to live to see the tricentennial. I can't wait. I had no idea what 113 years would look like, but I decided way back then that I was going to live to be 113, but then I stretched it out to 116 because I want to make sure I'm of sound mind and body during the tricentennial. So if our country is still a country, by that time, 2076, I'll be 113 years old and I'm going to be kicking it, y'all. So with that said, I'm a midlife woman at age 61. But just that we're going to be talking about, high achieving women. And first of all, what I would like for you to do is share with us, what does high achieving mean in the overall grand scheme of things? Because it might mean something completely different to me than it does to you.
That's a really good question, because I think it can vary for each person, right? We all have a different perception of what high achieving means, just like we might have a different perception of perfection. And I would say from what I've seen with women and knowing myself is that high achieving, high functioning women are women that are go-getters. They're multifaceted. They have so much on their plate. They're able to handle a lot. They get a lot done. And they're very successful in whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's their work, their life, etc. It all looks seamless and beautiful and packaged well, and other people admire them.
I love what you just said. You said it all looks. It looks seamless, packaged well, and other people admire them. I think I fit that package right there. And, because there's a lot of freaking turmoil going on behind the scenes. I got to tell you, there's a lot of turmoil going on behind the scenes. Not that it's debilitating or anything, but there's a lot going on. And so before we get started really talking about this topic, why don't you share with everybody who you are and what it is that you do? What are you all about, Josette? What are you all about?
Okay, so I am all about raising self-awareness. And so I call myself a self-awareness coach for midlife women, because those are the women that I love to work with. And I love to work with midlife women primarily because they have lived life long enough to gather enough wisdom to understand themselves at a level where they can start to really sink deeper into dissecting the pieces of themselves that really are not a fit any longer. And we sit in that space so often, not really knowing what to do with it. And we don't know what to call it. And we don't know how to have a conversation about it. It's usually just a sensation and what we feel. And so I work with these high functioning women to help them dissect those pieces, understand themselves at a deeper level, and then to start really emerging as their truest self so that they can start living a life that they feel successful in from the inside out. So that is what I do in a nutshell.
Okay.
And,
Did you see Austin Powers?
yes, I've seen Austin Powers. I think you too.
Every time I hear "in a nutshell."
Oh, I forgot about that. I will not forget it now, Linda.
I say it all the time about myself, but I can't help it. I just think like, that's me in a nutshell.
I love it.
So I love what you do. I think it's so important because for me, I worked with a life coach at age 51. I didn't know who I was, what I was all about, what value I had to offer, all these different things. And that life coach was able to see inside of me what I couldn't see inside of myself because we're living with ourselves. We don't see. If you look into a mirror, you still don't see the true you. And that's one thing I learned through working with her and how important it is for us, especially as we get older, because we're never going back in time. We are never going back in time, but we can get more time by knowing who we are and starting to live our lives that way. And that's one thing that I learned, through working with her. So you mentioned, midlife, and what made you decide to choose to work with midlife women, like in particular? Because there's all these different, we got the millennials, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xers, the Gen AA, the Gen double B. I don't, what are they going to do for Z? I don't know what they're going to do, but I can't wait to. But anyway, what made you decide to work with the midlife women?
Well, I think, most coaches tend to work with people that reflect themselves a lot. And so I am a midlife woman. I'm 58. And it has been the journey that I've been on myself in uncovering different awarenesses about my identities, who I committed to be, where I've chosen to make decisions and see the world from different identities that I committed to. Now, I didn't think of it that way. And what I found for, especially with women that are high achieving, they think they have to stay committed to this box that they put themselves in, and not intentionally putting yourself in a box, yet you develop these different identities and you wear them, you become a mother. And if that is the identity you really resonate with the most, then you are looking at life from what you think the best mother is. And so you discern from that space, you make decisions from that space, you cultivate relationships from that space, you build a life around that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you match all the beliefs and values of this perceived identity. And so when we start to peel back those layers and understand what we've agreed to, we then start to, our beautiful inner true self starts to rise and comes through the center like a phoenix rising. Let's get dramatic about it. That she really does emerge through the flames. And this is why I honed in on midlife women, because it's really something near and dear to my heart, because I believe that when we get to this age in our life, it's the most perfect time to really emerge and become empowered, which means to be responsible and accountable to ourselves and love ourselves and become our own soulmate.
Yeah, it's so true. I never really thought about my age until I started to dive into who I really am. It took me a long time to get there, to start to accept, who who I truly am. Like you mentioned, like I wrote down, the high achieving, the go-getter. I never saw myself that way. And I realize now that I am that woman. I am the person who wants so much more out of life. And I want to stretch myself to the limits to see, like, what can I do? And how do I do that? If I'm just sitting on the couch, watching TV, I do that. I do that. But that's not all I do. Whereas in the past, that was all I did. Like I went to 9 to 5, I came home, I went to a 9 to 5, I came home, I sat in traffic. That was my daily life for, 51 years. And so I love this because we're never too old to start something new. We're never too old to do that. Right. And what is something that, through your own midlife journey, what is something that you're doing now that you never, that was never on my trajectory? I never thought I'd be doing that.
What I do right now as a coach, I always dreamt in my early 20s of cultivating a community of women and lifting women up. I never imagined that it would look like this, that would come at this time in my life, that I would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I never imagined that I actually could. And I believe that women in midlife are primed for doing the thing that they love. Their passion really rises, and it's the most perfect time to start living the life that you've dreamt of, the dreams that have stayed hidden or submerged. I meet so many women that tell me they don't even know what they dreamt of when they were kids.
That's me.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I never dreamt of being anything in particular. I just knew I wanted to be influential. So I have a process that I use called the golden thread, and I have women go back to following this golden thread of what it is that they've done since childhood that has followed them. So an example of myself, I wanted to be influential. I used to make mud pies for my brothers and convince them that they were so pretty it was chocolate, which probably wasn't very nice of me, but I did. And they ate them. So only one time, and then I got in trouble. So, that was the end of my cake making days of mud. And through following back to that moment of feeling like I wanted to influence, it sounds kind of bad when I think about what I did. But what I mean is, I noticed that in that golden thread that followed me. I became a leader in an academic medical facility. I ran a department. And so I had influence. I mentored staff. I coached my supervisors. And so through that, I followed that thread to motherhood and then having my own business. So I have been following that thread all along. It just hasn't been the thing that really set my heart on fire, that opened me up, that fed me. And so I truly believe that you are guided to what is meant for you. It just giving yourself that glimmer of awareness to it is sometimes all it takes. And it just opens that door up.
Okay, you mentioned the word awareness 3 times, and the reason why I'm keeping count on that word, because I have my little ditty. I'm just going to have to break into it, okay? Like I cannot hold off any longer, so here goes. Okay, I have awareness now, I have awareness. How now, brown cow, I have awareness now. It's time for me to move on like Donkey Kong.
She did it.
That's right. Well, that the awareness, because nothing happens until we have that awareness. So, we're going through life, like I say, the robotic life for 51 years, blah, 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 blah. And then there was like, wow, I do not like what I'm doing. I do not like who I am. That's an awareness piece. And that's when we get to effect the change. And so I love that word awareness. I wrote that ditty one day, and every once in a while I will break out and sing that awareness song. Well, what I love with your sharing is, there's so many things like the thread, like what is that common thread? And a lot of times it does take, women until, all the kids are out of the house, everybody's off doing their own thing before they'll start to take care of themselves. And I know self-care is one of the things that you talk about. And so first of all, let's address 2 issues here or 2 things related to self-care. Let's look at self-care from the perspective of while my kids are still home, because those
Mm,
who are watching right now who have
yeah.
kids still at home, why should they and how do they tap
Mm,
into their self-care now instead of waiting until the kids are gone? And then also address the after the kids are gone piece of like, how do they now learn how to take care of themselves as opposed to being focused on the kids and the husband, the spouse, or just like whoever it is in the
yeah.
family.
That's a great question because I think this is the challenge for so many women. I mean, you know that from raising your kids. When they're little, there's no room for very much, right? You're just so focused on your children.
Yeah.
They need you. It's a requirement of you. And so we, as women, gladly put ourselves aside to take care of our children. There does come a time, though, where even in those moments where it is rough and you're just taking care of the kids, often, that there's so many things going on before they get into school. If you're staying home, and if you're not staying home, you're juggling the grocery store, the kids, the pickups, the blah blah blah. That's a little bit more challenging to provide yourself with self-care. So you have to take the moments that you get. If it's 10 minutes in the car to yourself, just breathe, do whatever feels good in that moment that feels like you're nurturing yourself in some way. I love to like have those times where I would get a pedicure. That was my self-care time. And I'm not talking about like that's the only way you care for yourself. It's really about giving yourself the moment to slow down internally. And this is part of one of my pillars is to slow down, listen deeply, connect within. Practicing those three pillars, even in those busy times of motherhood, will help you to assess where you are emotionally so that you know when you kind of need to give yourself a break. And I think that when we're raising young children, we think everything is so important and everything has to be done just so. And if you can let that relax a little and allow yourself to have some space that can bring in some other information around that, that it's not as serious as you might think it is. Not everything has to be just so. If you can
Mhm.
allow yourself to have enough space for that, give yourself grace, it will make the process a little easier. And as your kids get older, they still need you. In fact, I feel like once they're 12 and up, they really need you as far as like guiding them and being sure that you know what's going on in their life. And so your stage of motherhood shifts in their teenage years and you start becoming an advisor. And so in that way, taking care of yourself in the simple things of like being able to take a shower on a regular basis gets different, right? Yet you still have to slow down and pay attention to what's happening internally when you're guiding your kids, because we tend to go off of an automatic responses based on how we were raised, or there might be a little button that gets pushed in us by something they say, and then we have a different kind of reaction. If we are able to continue that practice of what I believe is true self-care, of slowing down and staying connected to yourself, then you can have a different kind of conversation. You can separate what is yours versus what it is that they're trying to say. And sometimes kids say stuff just to kind of like see how far they can push. And I recognize this so much when my oldest daughter was like 12, 13. And I thought, I got to get her into therapy. I don't, I want to make sure she's okay. So we went to the therapist together. And the therapist told me, it was a very big awakening for me, that your daughter's fine, but you need therapy.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, she's right. Because I wasn't handling my motherhood appropriately. I was thinking that there was something wrong with her when she was being totally normal. And so it was a
Right.
matter of me shifting my perception and slowing down to take care of myself better. And so then when you get past that age and your kids are off to college or off to whatever it is they're doing next, then you have more time. You're always going to be their mother. My oldest daughter's 35 now, and well, almost. She'd hate me to age her before she is. She turns 35 in July. So, and you know, I still am her mother. It's just I'm her mother in a different way as an adult. So, parenting your adult children is a whole different thing as well, and you still requires you to stay connected, listen to yourself, slow down enough to pay attention, you know, look at, be more objective, I think is really the key when you're slowing down, is to be more objective. It doesn't mean you stop doing all the things. It just means that internally you slow it down enough to pay attention to yourself, because it's so easy for us not to. And we just respond, because that's how our world is.
Awesome. I think that's so important, especially, you know, when we do have kids, is to teach them how to slow down too, because there are a lot of times they're emulating what we learn. And so the sooner we can learn those things, the sooner we can make the greater impact on their lives as well. So we're going to shift focus just a little bit here. We're here to talk about the book I read. The book I read is Stories of Transformation. What we did is we asked, you know, people, said, is there a book that you read that transformed your life? If so, what is that book, and what's the transformation you got from that book? This is not a book review, and this is not a book report. And so, Josette, the book that you chose to write about, the book that transformed your life, is called A Course in Miracles by Helen Schucman. And why don't you share with us just a little bit about that book, and then we'll talk about, I'm going to talk about this first, is that you can get your copy of the book I read at actiontakerspublishing.com/TBIR. And over there, also, you're going to find free gifts from the authors. Go ahead and cash in on those. Again, that's actiontakerspublishing.com/TBIR. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about how A Course in Miracles helped you with your transformation in your own life?
Yes. Well, A Course in Miracles is a book that is all about helping you to let go of the outside world's expectations and conditions. And so the very first, this is the first thing I like to say about it, because it kind of puts it in perspective and really kind of makes you think about it. The first lesson in the workbook, so there's the text, and then there's a workbook that goes for the full year, 365 days. Every day there's a lesson, an exercise. Some are short, some are long. And the very first one is to look around the room and pick something in the room. So I pick a lamp. When I look at the lamp in my living room, I remember who I was with when I purchased it and what were the circumstances around when I bought it. Now, I'll do this automatically. When I look at it, I still love the color, whatever it is. So the course asks you to look at that item and to let go of everything around it, all of your thoughts. So when I look at the lamp and I let go of who I was with, why I was purchasing it, what color it is, all of that, I see a lamp and I don't have attachment to it. And so it is a practice in detaching from the physical form so that the focus becomes an internal focus, to extract you out of that condition so that you are thinking more with the center of love, you are behaving with love, and that love is at the center of your life rather than everything out here.
That's fascinating. It's amazing how we can learn to do something like that. And a lot of times it takes us to learn that, because it's not something that we're born with intuitively to do that. And so I think that's a powerful, powerful message. Again, that was the book is called A Course in Miracles by Helen Schucman. Go get your copy of that. But more importantly, go get your copy of the book I read. And that's the one we want you to get, because this one has the stories of transformation from people and the books that they read. A list of the books that they read, that the authors read, is inside of this book. So you'll be able to quickly and easily go through and see all the different books that have transformed people's lives. So with that said, what is one thing that you would like the readers to take away from reading your chapter in the book I read?
The one thing I would like them to take away is that everything you think you know can be undone, and you can think something else. And so allow yourself to be open enough to know something new.
Oh man, that's philosophical. So good. So good. Now you can connect with Josette if you want to reach out to her. Go to guidance2wellness.com. That's guidance2wellness.com. Josette, I want to thank you so much for being in this book and being in my world. I'm excited to meet you in person, soon here down the line. And just get out there, buy the book I read. Also go check out A Course in Miracles by Helen Schuchman and see how that can help you to learn those miracles within yourself. Thank you so much, Josette. Truly appreciate you, everything you're doing to help midlife women to gain the confidence of stepping up into themselves and discovering who they are so they can show up as that person for the best half of their lives.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
You took the overwhelm out of the whole entire process. You said you set the guidelines, you said how many words to have. And it's like, once I sat down and started typing, it just all came out so quickly and so easily. And I loved it. And I had fear to write. And I know about that. I know about that blockage within myself, but it just was so amazing how easy the process was working with Action Takers Publishing.